people on Twitter are like, well, don't you know, you never go up into the attic. You have to go up on the roof. How the fuck do you get on the roof of your own house? Like from the do you have to go on the outside and then just wait and then like tread water until the water level gets high enough for you to reach the roof? Like, how are you supposed to get to the roof at that point?
I guess they want you to get to the roof while you can put a ladder on the ground.
I just feel like this is an impractical bit of advice.
Of course, it depends on what kind of house you have.
So or like I keep an axe in the attic, and then I go up and I oil it and I sharpen it every month so it doesn't get like rusted and dull.
Come on.
I'm like, really? You do that every month? You maintain the axe that you keep in your attic? Like, how?
Can't you get an axe envelope thing? So you don't have to.
Envelope? Oh, like a
an
holder?
Axe case.
Oh, case.
That goes over the sharpened part of it. Anyway.
Yeah, I should have been like, excuse me,
Yeah.
don't you have an envelope for your axe, sir? Hey, this is Amrita and Andrew. We're writers on a podcast journey to find our way through freelance life. If you're thinking about taking the leap off the beaten path in any part of your life, our inexpert advice is don't think twice.
This candle might be a little loud.
I like it. It's cozy. It sounds like a fireplace.
It's a birch flavored scented candle. Mother has many scented candles in the house.
Like mother, like son.
Yeah.
Actually, I feel that in a lot of ways about being here in this house. Like when I am looking for something specific, and I like went to go open a cabinet, and like everything has like these little caddies inside the cabinets that have like, and it's like organized by item type, by like genre of item, and then those are all organized like just like everything is like, and like the coffee filters are like next to the coffee canister, and just like everything is just so
in front of the secondary coffee canister.
Yeah, but in case we should run out of the first one. Like all the sort of things like that are like, it's just like it feels like a view into your brain, or like how you think, because like I'm sure you being here, it's like, oh well, everything makes perfect sense.
Yeah, my mom and I organize ourselves in the same way, but my mom has the luxury of living by herself, so she can organize exactly the way she wants to.
It's a beautiful thing to be in the house of a woman who has everything just the way she wants it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's perfectly designed for her own comfort. There's like something that's really like feels luxurious about that.
Well, we're fortunate to be within driving distance because we are refugees of New Orleans and Hurricane Ida. So that's why we're here to begin with.
Yeah.
For a few days or a week or TBD.
However long, yeah. Hard to say.
Until the power comes back in New Orleans, because we did flee early, so it wasn't really a flee, but...
Yeah, it was the most like relaxed fleeing that you can imagine, actually, in our case, because we're just the two of us, and we travel light and all that.
But we didn't take everything with us, so...
Oh my gosh, I'm like already out of underpants. I think we don't know what the impacts are fully yet, but...
So we're currently in my mom's house in Saluda, North Carolina, which is outside of Asheville, North Carolina.
We're safe and sound and everything's good. Do you have any thoughts about the process of evacuating?
Well, so we decided to get out earlier than I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, so that was easy. That part was very easy. And you know, and we thought like we don't have to stay, and other people do have to stay, so it's almost like more responsible to just leave. It's like less of a burden on, it's less of a burden on like other people who either can't stay, who can't leave, etc. I just have one thought, which was that when we were leaving, you know, there wasn't a ton of traffic yet, because again, we sort of left on the earlier end. There was this cavalcade of school buses that had a police escort, and I was like, at the time I was like, wonder what that is. I have an answer for that in retrospect. they evacuated all the prisoners.
I thought
of the
that at the
prisons.
time. I was like, that might be
Because I was
what
like,
they're
why
doing.
does that high school football team have
They're
such
like
a
very mature.
police escort? And why are all the windows tinted?
Did you see about the man who presumably got eaten by an alligator?
Oh,
Did you see this?
my God. Yes. Yes.
So 71 years old, and
This is like a nightmare scenario.
Yes, he lives in Slidell, which Slidell's on the opposite side of Lake Pontchartrain. Well, it's right as you leave New Orleans, but it's on the water, the lake. And
Close, as we learned, to David Duke's home.
that's a different town.
Oh, never mind. Scratch that from the record.
So Slidell is right on the lake, and he went outside to assess some water damage, to assess the water situation. His wife was inside. He found himself confronted by an alligator. His wife heard him scream. She ran outside and beat back the alligator. With pots and pans, I don't know.
Okay,
Brave
this
woman.
woman. I'm sorry. This woman is like, she's next level. She's like an action hero.
Yeah. Beat him back, but I had noticed her husband was injured enough that was going to need medical help. So she gets in a canoe that she has, because they do live by the water. So
And she paddles away.
presumably they're prepared. So she paddles away to get help of some sort. And when she returns with help, her husband is missing, completely gone.
I'm deeply troubled by that gator story. Yeah, she returned and he was gone.
Yeah. So presumed to be eaten by the alligator.
Oh my God. It's like, it feels like something from a movie. And of course, I'm like, well, but the body's gone. Like, and so they took pains in the article to point out that the evidence supported her story, because they were like, I know that sounds crazy. Oh, officer.
It would be a convenient moment to
right, to
husband.
off your husband. And like, oh, officer, I swear he was right here. And I swear there was a big old gator. We've been seeing 7-foot gators just all over the place.
But they said it was.
They said it seemed, the evidence pointed to it. I do have something to say about being on Zoom meetings, which came up today in a meeting that I had where someone was saying that they believe that one of the benefits, if we could think of it, of remote work is that it reduces bias.
Was this research that he was?
No, it was anecdotal. It was anecdotal. I mean, it was admittedly anecdotal.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't being stated as a fact, but as a, like, I'm hearing this from people. There's not like hard data to back it up, but that seems to be like a common sentiment or something like that,
So
Yeah, I think it's like one of the few positive framings that I've heard about being in Zoom meetings, because it is like, one thing is like, every call now is presumed to be, you asked me, oh, is your call going to be video call today? And I was like, well, every call now is presumed to be a video call.
yeah, it's
like
there's
there's
video
no
killed the radio star.
Yes, totally. Yeah, totally. I can believe this argument of like reducing bias in general. And I do think that like as a short person, it does feel like a bit of an equalizer, that like my physical stature doesn't matter as much. But
Are you cognizant of your physical stature in a meeting?
I think I am. Yeah, I think I am.
When everyone's sitting down.
I am aware of it when everyone's when everyone feels like bigger than me.
Well, I'll say with Zoom, unlike conference calls for whatever reason, it does like create what is thought of as like awkward space between when someone finishes talking and when someone else talks, which it is awkward space.
Yeah.
Especially when multiple people want to talk at one time.
Or being able to talk over each other.
But on the
cut
flip
in.
side, you can't talk over people, so you have to wait. Saying.
Yeah.
To
Oh, that's kind of a good point, that like people who might otherwise get talked over are more likely to be able to finish their thought because it's more awkward to interrupt people on Zoom or something.
Yeah.
So maybe there's some credence to that, but I also think people are really grasping for sort of certain silver linings about like our current situation. Like another thing was that like employees really have CEOs over a barrel right now because like they have so much power to set policies. Like CEOs are terrified of their employees right now, and that's kind of like the tenor.
Is that true?
I don't know. I mean, to me that sounds silly, but I guess
let's not lose sight of because I've read and seen a lot of this conversation about the job market and then about employees, which
people are so afraid about employee retention that they're willing to give employees
retention. So it's important for employees to have flexibility, i.e. remote, yada yada. But let's not lose the sight of the fact that businesses are very good at understanding what the demand is and then working to use that demand in their favor. So for a labor group or employees in an organization to demand remote work, but not to demand less work, or not to tie it to not an increase in productivity. Right. My fear would be that companies like, of course you can work from home. Because as we've seen, a lot of productivity has gone up with working from home.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's worked better,
I think.
Some
employees have been unhappy because they want to be in the office, and that's a different issue. But I wouldn't want companies to say, you can work from home as long as this is the new like benchmark of what you do. And then employees say, okay, well, that's the deal. So that's not the deal. Like the deal isn't you having to work more, longer, or harder to do something that technology allows, and it's actually arguably, especially as we put energy systems into place that are greener, is overall greener, gets people off the roads and whatnot. I just would hate to see businesses figure out how to pivot that.
Yeah.
What now is being couched as this thing, like a moment where employees have CEOs over a barrel, to where like a year from now, it's like everyone's working from home 7 days a week. 12 hours a day in order to meet their
like all
benchmarks.
Day, every day. Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to that, but I also think like I don't know how much that's actually true, like functionally true. Like if that were really true, like wouldn't we be getting to a point where like people are getting paid more, or like how
right.
In what way do people actually have people over a barrel? Like what you can do is quit and then go find like the least bad of your other options. But like so far there hasn't been, to my knowledge, any movement towards like making a radically better place to work. No. That's so much different from your other competitors. It's like still vetting all the options to find like the least bad one. And I don't think that counts as like that type of power of saying that we have CEOs over a barrel as the workforce right now. Like unless there's collective organizing for the workforce or something, I don't see that.
Unless large organizations policies in this country change around large organizations, it's small businesses that are getting the shit end.
Yeah,
small
for sure.
towns and small businesses are the ones that can't retain employees because Googles and Amazons can pay them whatever they want to pay them to live in Tulsa, Oklahoma,
right.
for example.
just for example.
In a minute. So it's really small businesses. Anyway, this spooling out into a different conversation.
No, this is the conversation. This is the conversation because I think saying that the people have the power is very glib because I don't think that that's really the case. I mean, if the only power that you have is to quit, I mean, sure, that's something, but like so far all we're doing about it is just wringing our hands and saying that there's a labor shortage and not actually making any like strides towards like correcting that. So,
and as much as there might be some power in collectively inside of an organization to quit, it also creates an environment where if we are talking about the technological advances that allow people to work from home in the United States, we're also talking about technological advancements that allow employees to work anywhere in the world, which also means companies, as they've been doing for decades now, can hire anywhere in the world. So we had industry that moved to Texas, to move to Mexico to pay, a worker $2 an hour. But now we can go to India, as we've done for 20 years, and hire customer service people. But not only customer service people now. We can hire out people in China and anywhere in the subcontinent to do something for cents on the dollar. So
right.
Sure, you can
so
quit your
what's
job.
the actual leverage that we have? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like hard for me to really see that as being like a power.
It's not. The power is in the policy.
Yeah.
So vote, people.
Yeah. Actually can't really say it better than that, but yeah, and it's just like I think we're still in this place where we're viewing like the millennial like gig. I mean, I'm just saying this off the back of this conversation I just had with and where it's like the idea. It's like, oh, it's a very dynamic work environment for people who are millennials and like wanting to do all these different jobs, and like that people want to do so much and can do so much and like working all these different jobs. And I was like, that's such a weird and positive framing of saying like people are hustling really hard to
pay the bills
and meet the status quo. It's like I appreciate trying to find like positive framings of things in some ways, like because I think I can get in a very dim and gloom perspective about the work, especially as I think about like what am I gonna do, what are we gonna do with our careers in the moving forward. But I don't see this as a positive framing. It's like it's a survival tactic, not like a dynamic fun perk of being a millennial.
Well, we think of work and money, but we should really get rid of those words and replace it with like resource sharing. And like the gig economy is because people don't have enough resources and they have to go to many different places.
Well, I think you've been thinking so much lately in a community-minded mindset that I've found really, really inspiring, actually, or really interesting to think about, like, why do we acquire resources? And you've been really, like, repeating the sort of idea that like we acquire resources to share resources. We acquire resources to create things for our community. Like we were just talking about, you were saying if I could buy any property, if I had a large budget to buy any property right now, right, what would I buy? It wouldn't be like a multi-bedroom house, like single family house. It would be definitely, I would buy like a
multi-family unit that then, with the resources I have, I can house people literally that
like
don't need to have the same
mm-hmm.
resource. They don't need to cover the mortgage. I don't need to, because I have those resources. Mm-hmm. Well, it's also like, if I want to be a writer, you can't be a writer and you can't be a writer. We can't all be writers, because then we wouldn't have other people to do other. I mean, obviously, right? Yeah. This is an obvious statement. Obviously, not everyone wants to be a writer. Not everyone wants to be anything. Mm-hmm. So we all are different things, and we all rely on each other in different ways, and that seems to make sense to us. But there comes a jumping off point.
Well, but it doesn't make sense to us, though. Like, I don't think we've lost so much track of how we rely on each other that we don't view that as being a critical goal in like when we're acquiring wealth, or we're why are we doing any of this? It's to like it's to like continue to strengthen how we rely on each other, not like to make ourselves independent from one another.
Right.
And like I feel like I've been thinking about that so differently because you've been, I don't know, maybe that's just always a viewpoint that you've had, but it's something that you've been voicing a lot recently about like what do we do with what do other people do with resources? What do we want to do with resources? Like,
and if you're a principled person, like you need to assess how you use your resources. Mm-hmm. And making yourself safe and comfortable, to my mind, should not be top of the list. Safe should be top of the list.
Of course, yeah.
But if you have a lot of resources in the world, I think it's your moral responsibility to consider how you use those resources. And that doesn't mean that people shouldn't enjoy luxuries. That doesn't mean any of that.
Right. Or buy things. You should buy, if you...
Or buy things. I mean, of course, you're cognizant of your
impact and whatever, all that.
The impact, mm-hmm. yeah. Well, we were talking about the hurricane, or actually before the hurricane, because there's been a lot of news items about the supply chain disruptions because of COVID and whatnot.
Oh, yes.
And people say, well, you better buy your holiday items now if you want them, as if the holidays will actually not materialize
if you don't have physical items.
Physical things.
Yeah. It's absurd.
And we got talking about this.
It's all like better panic, better buy
creates
everything
this
you need.
panic, and then people buy out all these things, and it was like the beginning of the pandemic where everyone bought all the toilet paper, and
it created a supply chain
issue.
When maybe there wouldn't have been one. Maybe there would have been one anyway.
When we were talking about the community aspect, it's like, does no one have any faith that if you run out of toilet paper, you wouldn't have no one person who would offer you toilet paper?
Right. I mean,
is that the world we live in?
It's like I would rather have 50,000, whatever the thing is that you're hoarding to make sure that my ass, figuratively, literally, is covered, when it's like, our job really should be to make sure that we are all covered, right? Or that even, and not work, you don't even have to think globally about it. It's that like the people around you, it can just your immediate circle. Like it does, I think, break your brain a little bit to think about how do we resource share on like a massive scale, but we're talking about you and yours and like your family, your friends, like your community that you can see.
Yeah.
Physically.
Well, it's like the beauty of the buy nothing groups on Facebook,
which I love.
I mean, the concept being that if you have something, someone else in your neighborhood that you're going to give away, someone else can use it, of course. But I think it points to even a greater communal aspect than just giving away things that you were going to throw away so it doesn't end up in a landfill. It's like someone whose windows couldn't
this was great.
Close and their car for a rainstorm, asking if anyone had a place
a covered spot
until they can figure out how to fix their car. Posted to the Buy Nothing group,
and the post was like, "I have a tarp, but it's leaking."
And there's something that was so sweet about that.
Yeah,
people had even if they couldn't help, they had suggestions, but
like,
it was localized
there's a
enough.
church on the corner. I think they have like a a overhang or something. Yeah, localized enough that it's like you can actually help, like direct help from person to person.
Yeah.
And I think we're moving so much in that direction. And even thinking about like the aftermath of the hurricane, it's the immediate aftermath right now. Like it literally just happened as we're talking. But, it seems like there's in our maybe demographic or generation, I don't know how widespread it is, but in our circles I see tons of like mutual aid, and that's kind of the thing. And like the trend very much in my circles is like, don't give to nonprofits, don't give to large organizations. The best thing you can do is like person to person. Here's this person's like, this person needs help, here's their Venmo, here's how you can like either get something to someone directly or like mutual aid organizations, and dispersing things that way. So it's like I'm handing out meals to my neighbor and please Venmo me money. And it does require a certain amount of trust that the person who's asking for help is someone who actually does need help, or the person who's offering help is actually going to offer it and not like misuse those funds or whatever. But it feels like we're starting to move much more towards like trusting people locally, and getting that help to people directly.
Well, speaking of nonprofits, I don't know, someone better be producing a documentary about the nonprofit industrial complex, because we need to have come to Jesus about these large nonprofits in the world, and how I believe separate from nonprofits that fund scientific research that requires many millions of dollars in order to do that kind of trial and all everything that's involved in that. I think large nonprofits pose just as many problems as they're.
I don't think you're alone in feeling that way at all.
No.
What we should be expecting.
The nonprofit world has modeled itself after the corporate world.
Yes.
And made big conglomerates that do nothing.
Yeah, well, and it's the idea of like,
they market well.
Right. I think we're seeing more and more of the failure of fixing things on a global scale, and when I say global scale, I just mean like a large scale, like
yes,
even if it's regional or whatever, versus like giving a person something that they need, or trusting that. And this is like sort of what we've talked about often about like the government giving people money instead of giving corporations money and hoping that it'll like make its way back to the economy, is trusting that people know what to do with their own money. Like, you can give somebody money and they're going to know what's best to help themselves. We can't like cater to the lowest common denominator.
Which is what we do all the time.
All the time.
Especially when it comes to aid that needs to get, monetary aid that needs to get to people who need it. It is like the process.
Like, God forbid we actually just give it to the person who needs it.
Paperwork and all the things. There's most 95% plus of all the money that's supposed to help with rent relief in this country is locked up.
Oh, yeah.
And yet we can just cut a check on a Tuesday and United Airlines and Delta get it on a Wednesday. But yet we are worried about the people who are living on a trailer on the side of the mountain who pay $400 a month in rent. We are worried that they're somehow waging some sort of huge scheme.
Right. Or
and
like
that one person who does manage a scheme, that one person in the suburbs of Chicago who happens to swindle the government out of $1 million, that means the $90 billion that we're supposed to go out. We need to stop this whole process because this one asshole bought a Ferrari and drove it around, and that really pisses us off.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the shareholders of Delta, they just cash their check, which is the government's check, which is the taxpayers' check,
our money,
which is not even that. And the taxpayers are not the rich people who are getting. Those people have accountants who figure out, the whole thing. Anyway, Tulsa. So our time in our time in New Orleans is drawing to a close.
And so you feel that you're like ready for the next frontier. That's how you're feeling about New Orleans?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm a person who I'm not good at projecting how I'm going to feel in
tomorrow.
A month.
Okay.
That doesn't mean I don't plan for the future and just make decisions.
Yeah. Of course.
But
no, I'm just wondering where your head's at with that.
I also, when I leave a place, if I've lived somewhere and I leave, and this is probably true of a lot of people, if not most people, it's the second you leave a place that you, first of all, become immediately nostalgic.
Yeah.
Because, like I was talking about nostalgia the other day, and nostalgia is this interesting emotion because it's really an emotion that you can develop and really sit in like a warm bath because you know what the ending to the story was. If we're nostalgic about a certain period in pop culture, it's because we know what came after it.
It's the comfort. So we know the comfort of reading the end of the mystery and then going to the beginning and reading it.
Right.
Which my mom and sister do.
A nostalgic feeling when I leave a place because I know the whole beginning, middle, and end of what happened. So
it's comforting.
So when we drove from New Orleans here to North Carolina, even just leaving to escape the storm, I was like immediately nostalgic for New Orleans.
Oh, that's so funny.
So I don't know how I'm going to feel.
I mean, it's been like, it was funny. We were joking about this. I remember like when we first got to New Orleans where we were like, oh, this is great. And then we're like, is 2021 just going to be that like weird thing that we're like, oh, remember that year that we lived in New Orleans? And it has been, and it's been like, not quite a year, but 3/4 of the year. Yeah. And it's been great. And I feel like it's been such a like refuge and like such an adventure. We've had a lot of adventures and just the whole undertaking was an adventure, but even, in being there and like really getting to know a place like on that level.
Right.
Is so cool. And I think it's weird that you should say that about like leaving because like I think like last week I would have been like yeah I'm good, we've done New Orleans, we can check we don't need to like extend our stay at all. So but upshot is we have not decided what's coming next. So far we are thinking we'll be in New Orleans through the end of September or mid-September to the end, probably end of September depending on when we can get back there post hurricane, but have no plans. And I've been very like for some reason getting my back up when people ask me very sweetly and well intentioned, and I'm feeling better about that.
Okay, good, because we had a conversation about it.
We did. Like people were asking, "What's your plans?" And for some reason, I would just be like, "Well, I don't know." Okay.
You were getting so annoyed.
I was getting annoyed.
I said, when someone asks you, it's similar to when someone asks you, what do you do for a living? Mm-hmm. Like, what are your plans? Those are questions that you don't need to feel compelled to answer, because what they're asking is like, oh, you're a person in front of me. Tell me something. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah. I want to connect with you.
To indicate to you that I would like to connect with you.
And I care about you.
Yeah. So if you're in a party and someone's like, what do? You can say, oh, I live in Memphis, you could like, it doesn't need you.
I'm learning how to canoe.
I'm taking a pottery class right now.
Yeah.
And I guarantee that person will probably find that way more interesting than whatever job you do. So it's similar when someone, what's your plan? Just tell them whatever you want to tell them about you.
Yeah. No, I know. And it's obviously, I mean, so obviously about me. Not about the person who's asking. And I appreciate people like caring enough to ask. I don't want them to not ask, but it just makes me feel like I need to have an answer for them. And then like, again, I'm feeling better about that now. Right. I'm just like, I've really internalized that advice you gave me there. It's like, what is the question that's actually trying to be asked? And it's like, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
What's going on? That's what people are actually saying when they're saying like, so what's next? What's happening? And I'm like,
I don't know. I'll tell you what I know. Yeah. Well, I tell you what might be happening.
Yeah. Tulsa.
Because one day, I've been seeing a lot of news articles about various small towns around the country that will pay you to move there for a year or so. Mostly small and mostly out of the way. But I looked up this list.
Do you remember some
Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
There might have been one in Vermont. There are several in the Midwest, but all in very small towns.
Okay.
And I thought, well, we don't have plans. Let me see what the options are. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, we could decide that we want to be in the middle of Colorado in the mountains.
Yeah, what if it offsets our cost for like the whole year?
Right.
Then we could kick the can down the road on...
So I did a little research, looked into some things. Of course, there were a lot of things we wouldn't qualify for, only because there seems to be a desire to lure yuppies, for lack of a better word. Yeah. So like computer engineers and designers. So snooze. So to those cities, I say...
Where's your culture going to come from,
I should say, like, you're just going to have a real... Yeah. Like, you think you want that thing, but you don't.
Yeah. Like, look at what happened to the Bay Area.
Right.
Let it be a cautionary tale.
But a city that we did... The largest one is Tulsa. City of 400,000. Slightly bigger than New Orleans.
Yeah, I was going to say, sidebar, slightly bigger than New Orleans with that population.
Yeah. So Andrew here just pulled up the TulsaRemote.com application, and I completed it. And
how long did that take you, by the way?
That took me 15 minutes.
Okay.
I will say, so it's a nonprofit. Tulsa Remote is a nonprofit organization that, one, their website is easy to navigate and good. Two, their application process is easy to navigate and good. And three, their follow-through seems to be good, because I got an email yesterday or the day before that we have advanced to the second round.
Ding, 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 ding. Congratulations
and they would like
to
us. Schedule a video Zoom call, 20-minute video interview. To see if we can qualify.
If we can be Tulsa's next top resident.
Yes. So in the application, they did ask, like, why do you want to move to Tulsa? In the field that I'm supposed to explain why I want to move to Tulsa, I wrote, I don't know. I would love to learn more.
No, you didn't. You did?
Yeah.
That was what you put? I don't know.
I said, I don't know.
Why Tulsa?
I'd love to learn more.
Okay. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. It's a spirit of curiosity.
I
Yeah,
feel
sell
like
me
if
on
you-
Tulsa, baby.
Yeah,
Sell
like
me.
you're the tourism board. I don't need to tell you.
They're going to give you $10,000 in cold, right? Isn't that what
Cold
you said?
hard cash.
$10,000 in cold hard cash to move to Tulsa. Okay, babe.
Yeah.
Lay it on me.
Yeah. So I don't know how many of you listening are geography nerds. I'm certainly not.
Well, more so than me,
Right.
who thought that Delaware was a New England state until I was 19, 20, until I went to college in Massachusetts.
Do you realize how truly in the middle of nowhere Tulsa, Oklahoma is?
No, I actually don't.
It is.
I don't.
It is in the
I think
middle.
I think I'd have to look at a map.
It is in the middle. Because I applied and I thought, what Tulsa's what, 2 hours from Chicago? No. Oh, it can't be more than 3 hours from
Like
something.
some city. St. Louis?
Nowhere.
Really? Nowhere?
I mean, you could probably go to
Omaha.
right.
No, I don't know, actually. I don't even know. I just said that. I don't
Des
even know.
Moines. I don't know, but look it up. It's in the
Iowa
middle of
City?
nowhere.
Wait, where is Oklahoma? What am I even talking about?
Yeah.
Isn't Oklahoma underneath the Dakotas? God, I mean, we drove through the Dakotas. God knows there's like not a whole lot of metropolises there. Lovely state, not much.
Right. So yeah, the dream might be Tulsa. I've never been there. I can't speak to it. It is a tough sell, though.
Well, for someone who doesn't have any ties
No
there,
family,
that's not
no
a knock on. That's not a
understanding.
knock on Tulsa. It's just like, whatever. So you move it to a city, but that is not in your other cities that you don't actually have any existing ties to, or you don't have like a community there. You don't have like family reasons to be there.
Right.
That's not a knock on Tulsa. It's just like what in general of any place would like be a draw to get you there under those circumstances.
Right. I do have a critique of Tulsa. It's also a critique I have of Detroit. It's also a critique I have of upstate New York.
Okay.
Yeah, get this. Get this. The second thing I did after looking at apartments in Tulsa to see what even they looked like, I looked at the best bars and restaurants.
Okay.
Okay. The price points for restaurants in Tulsa, similarly to restaurants in Detroit, similarly to restaurants in places like Buffalo, New York, are similar to that of New York City.
Similar pricing to New York
Similar pricing.
That's
We're
very
talking like
surprising
cocktail
to me.
bars go from $12 up to $18 in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's very surprising to me.
A beer bar was like $7 to $12 for pints of beer. It's like Tulsa, Oklahoma? You want to convince me to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma? But
Paying
then I have to
Manhattan
pay
prices on my beer?
prices?
Yeah.
I think that what that reveals is like the manipulated market that we live in. Real estate wise, supply, everything. And I'm not advocating for food to be cheaper nationally because I think in America don't pay enough for our food. But and we definitely don't pay enough for the people who
Who serve
it all
it and make
happen.
it. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking, I'm just still stuck on this question of like, what would induce me to move?
So
like sort of
they
a-
help you get to the city, and then they put you in this, whether or not you like a co-working space, that's a different conversation. But they do provide you with the desk, and you can meet all of these
Other
other
people.
startup-y people, small businessy people. And then they also can connect you with apartments or houses if you would like that. And then there are a couple of other things they do, events and
Right.
and,
Sure.
and what seems to be pretty genuine networking opportunities because it is a smaller city. So they're able to sort of like see what your industry is and look and try
That's
to.
like really kind of great. What a great idea.
So I do think for people either who have ties.
I mean, if that program existed for Detroit, for instance,
You're right.
I would be like, we got to do it right now.
Right.
Like we got to get in there. But I think part of it is just like knowing that it would be like in a place where either we're close to or have some ties or like I feel like compelled enough by the cultural draw.
Right. So who knows?
So who knows what's next? But are we gonna do this? Are we gonna do the video interview?
Well,
TBD?
we need to talk about it because I don't want to waste anyone's time.
Yeah.
But,
Well, we'll debate that. I look forward to that.
right. moving into the fall, even though the Delta variant has, for all of us, changed the direction of everything again and thrown everything up into the air and whatnot, are starting again to reach out to people that we've had ongoing conversations with about our work. We are really lucky to have been connected to people who are just like genuinely
really good people. Yeah,
just really good people.
In terms of like networking about our writing.
Absolutely. And so we're writing away and trying to reach out to people. Anyone listening who knows people, feel free to send them our way.
Yeah, we're looking for representation.
Yep.
We are looking for production companies to produce our work.
Right.
People to collaborate with. All that.
Yes. Yes, we would love a manager who can help us
open some
do that
doors.
Marketing component that
really
we just don't.
Right.
So that requires asking people for help.
Yes.
Which is amazing to me. The people I've come across in my life who are very good at asking for help, and truly how far they get and these are people who are finely talented and smart and even they're fine. Yeah. Average amount of effort into the work they do. Sure. And that is not a judgment. That's good. They put an average amount of effort into the things they do, and their quality is average or above average, but let's say average. But they don't have a problem asking people for the help they need. You and I have a problem sometimes of asking for help.
Yeah.
We'd rather...
Our balance is like, let's work really, 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 really hard, way above average in terms of our effort.
Yes.
And then less like below average on like asking. Yeah.
So as we started, I say all this because as we started to ask for help...
Again, on our next round
I typed into Google how to ask for help.
No, you didn't. Did you really?
I did.
You did?
I did.
And what did you find out?
And I thought, you know
was
what?
Was it helpful?
And there was a TED talk that's like how to ask for help.
You're so cute. That's so funny.
And at first I was like, I know how to ask for help. I don't need to watch a YouTube video. A TED talk on how to ask for help. And then I thought, Andrew, you know what? You're going to watch this video, this 12-minute video. Yeah. You're not going to turn it off early because you're annoyed at introductions, which is at sidebar. People need to work on their introductions, i.e. just cut the introduction from whatever you're doing because we know why we're there.
This is a quick sidebar. We're going to get back to how to ask for help. Yeah. But you are taking a course where you're just like, okay, I signed up for the course. You signed up to teach the course. Yes. We're both here for the same reason. Cut the shit about telling me why this topic is important. We obviously agree with it.
I'm just taking a free class because just for my own knowledge. And I'm like, I signed up, dude.
Like we obviously both agree that this is important.
The entire first week was what we were going to do and why we were going to do it. It's like, no. I know what we're doing. Right. I know why I want to do it. Asking for help.
Yes.
12-minute TED Talk video. I'm going to endure her intro, which thankfully was not very long, and she did a pretty good job. And I'm going to watch this video. And then I'm going to think, after I watch it, what are the takeaways? And I wrote down the 4 steps. I'm like, I'm going to write down what she says. Even though this sounds like such common sense. Then I drafted an email asking for help from someone. Then I went back to that list, those 4 points that she had said. And it's then I realized that I had not, in fact, done the things that I thought in watching the video were so obvious.
Well, do you have any takeaways?
So the first and most important is to be specific. Such common sense. But when you're asking for help, a lot of times,
yes,
you want to keep someone else open that whatever way they can. You
don't want to hear no.
The thought is whatever way you can help me would be great.
Right. And so then it leads to me saying things like, "Hey, I'd love to pick your brain about this," or like, "I'd love to like hear your thoughts."
Yes. Or even we're hoping to, move things forward.
Get to the next step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And often there could be many different things that someone you're asking for help could do that would help you.
Right.
But if you don't decide for them the way that you want them to help, they're less inclined to help you at all.
Right.
So you have to have faith that if you ask them for a specific thing, if we write to someone and say, can you help us find a manager?
Mm-hmm. They might be able to help us on multiple levels, but
come back with, I can, no. Or they might come back with a yes, let me think about it. Yes, that would be great. Mm-hmm. Or they might come back with a, I can do this instead.
Yeah. But
you shouldn't anticipate that. And you shouldn't say, well, also, this or that or the other. So I had written an ask that was not specific enough.
Yeah.
I had written an ask that never apologize,
mm-hmm.
never sort of give any extraneous commentary on your ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I'm only like this tiny little person in, this huge universe.
Yeah. Apologizing before you ask for help. Sure.
So, because you don't need to tell someone how to feel about you. If you're asking for help from someone, if you're asking for someone to help someone then you just need to trust that they like you. Mm-hmm. If it's a stranger, then you just got it. They're going to think of you
however they're...
And they're going to think of you poorly if you tell them how to think of you.
Correct. Oh, God, yeah.
And to just keep it concise and trust that that's not going to be viewed as rude or insensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hadn't really done those very well.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I crafted it, it was much simpler. It was just like, hi, this is what I want.
Can you help
me?
Yeah.
And and there was, there was a polite
and hope you're well, and yeah, exactly, of course.
But one,
not like 2 paragraphs of blah blah blah.
I hope you're well, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes I think I know, but I actually don't.
It's like it actually pays to like kind of really go back to basics and being like, what am I trying to achieve with this, and have I achieved
and it's
that?
And to think, oh, this is common sense. Okay, well, if it's common sense, are you applying the common sense?
Yeah.
Isn't
it funny how much asking for help is like a skill that I'm like, I feel like we're continually like learning how to do better.
Yes.
It feels like it's been like it's never gotten to a point where I'm like, oh, check, okay, I figured it out. I figured out how to ask people for help.
Yeah.
I didn't never imagine that this would be such like a big deal, like in our like creative career, that it would be like still something to be figured out and innovated. And
so this is a thought that I shared with you yesterday. Research that I saw about rejection. Rejection activates, not completely, but there is some evidence to suggest that rejection activates pain receptors in your brain. And they've even shown that painkillers, Advil, Tylenol, reduces the feeling of rejection. This area needs more research to say anything definitively, but the scientists, they say this points to some, the need in prehistoric man to maintain social bonds, because when you were rejected from the group,
right,
you were sure to die.
Right.
There was no way as humans, you had to, going back to our resource sharing conversation. So you had to perceive it as being
like painful enough that you want to avoid it at all costs.
Yeah. So when we are rejected in any kind of way, socially, rebuked in like small ways, and we feel in our brain that was maybe an outsized reaction, which sometimes we do have outsized reactions. Mm-hmm. But to have a negative feeling about what we imagine is a really small slight.
So when I'm like, okay. So when I get burned and I'm like, ooh, ouch. That's really actually what I mean. It is ouch.
Yeah. When someone is rude to you, you're like, oh, that stung. Even though I don't know this person or really care. It's like, yeah, well, that's humans, baby.
Mm-hmm. So the point is that we try to like do everything we can to avoid being hurt.
Right. So in asking for help, I should say, asking for help.
I saw. Sorry.
It's anticipating a way to avoid
pain,
the possibility of rejection, i.e., the possibility of pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're just such simple creatures, really, aren't we? At the end of the day, little soft little animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're asking for help and you feel like this is terrible, It's because your brain's like, oh, I don't want them to come back and reject me because
hurt.
I don't want to feel bad.
I don't want to feel hurt.
But you will be okay.
You will be okay.
My mother has a cat.
She does.
And that cat's name is Daisy. And that cat... My mom is a very kind-hearted person.
Mm-hmm.
My mom takes care of a lot of things and a lot of people. Now my mom is taking care of Daisy, her cat, who is...
She's the most decrepit creature.
So about a month or two ago, so over the past year, this cat, which has been in our lives for 12 years or so, it was a stray, so who knows how old it was when it came into our lives. It's the most short, squat, dumpy little...
Like she has like these little tiny
legs.
Little like T-Rex little legs.
Yeah.
Like a little round body and tiny short legs.
And she's been great company.
Mm-hmm.
She's not particularly nice.
Mm-hmm.
But unless she wants to be.
That's not a prerequisite for...
Right. So in the past, 8 months, 10 months, she's deteriorated very quickly. And my mom took her to the vet, and they said she has arthritis.
Depression. Oh.
Well, okay, so first my grandmother died, and when my grandmother died and my granddad went into the nursing home, the vet said that the cat was depressed because her living situation had changed, and her people were no longer around. Then she developed arthritis rather quickly, too. Mm-hmm. So she was slowly losing mobility. And then in the past couple months, my mom took the cat back to the vet and said, I think it's time to put it down.
Yeah.
The vet said, this cat has more years to live. It's just arthritic. And she got better for a while. She responded well to the medicine and would walk around, not easily, but she would get around. But now it's just to the point where she doesn't
move all day.
She doesn't move.
Yeah.
And she's so sweet. And
you're so sweet to her. Like she can't really like get up out of her bed, so you carried her in the bed, outside with you
for fresh air. Yeah.
While you were working yesterday, and
while later in the sun,
mm-hmm.
made sure to get too hot because bring her food to the bed, let her eat laying down, mm-hmm. then carry her to the litter box. Oh. So, the quality this is really end of life care.
Yeah, or like elder care
She's so
care.
sweet. She'll just meow to get petted for a little bit,
mm-hmm.
purr. And,
mm-hmm.
But I think the time has come.
Yeah, and I never had pets like of this like mammals in the house growing up, and I do think there's a certain argument towards like be like having death be kind of more of a familiar concept that I never got used to.
Interesting.
And I'm just thinking about that because I was like, just had like a moment today where I was like communing with the cat. I mean, I'm allergic to her, but she can hardly help that. It's not her fault. So like I was just chilling with her and like, and just being like, well, it's a good day to be, to be alive. And maybe this is going to be one of her last days. And I was just like, and I never really think about stuff like that. And I understand she's a cat. She's just a cat. Like, but I do think maybe there's something to that about like kids who grow up with animals have like maybe like I don't know.
You and I have a different concept of death.
Yeah, and we're writing about death, so this is something that I'm really interested in, like thinking about and writing about and reading about right now, is like our relationship to death and as people and it's sort of like the ever-present specter, like and P.S. it's a comedy we're writing, but it's just it's something that like I weirdly being here with a cat that's at the end of its life has really gotten me thinking in interesting ways about like the human parallel that we're writing about.
Yeah. I've never taken care of it. I mean, this cat is fully disabled.
Yeah.
Poor girl.
Poor baby.
Poor girl. Mm-hmm. But, my family is like many Southern families. We don't consider pets part of the family. But that being said, I think it's kind of semantics because
we love them and care for them.
Yeah. And so it's just, we'll take her and put her down, and it will be just like the end of a beautiful little thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, we really see, and you see it in people too, of course. But in America, we are talking about dying in America. This comedy is about dying in America's
that we're writing
in nursing homes and assisted living. And when you get to that end of your life, there's so many times where strangers become those people who see your last moments. Mm-hmm. Partially because of your functions have now deteriorated to the point where you need a lot of help, much like being walked to the litter box for this cat.
Yeah.
But for this cat, we still walk the cat. It's so small, we can take care of it. We can take care of all of its needs, feeding it and bathing it and brushing it and taking it to the litter box. And so you get to see the whole, like, we get to be with this little cat through its like end life fully, in a way that we are so afraid of death as humans that even though we can be with our loved ones until the last moment, there's so many ways in which we put a little bit of space between that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And not to be too morbid, but we can decide when pets who are of a certain condition leave this earth. Mm-hmm. We can take them in, and we can do that in a ritualized way if we want to.
Yeah, which we don't have a framework
for. We don't have that.
Really, in most places.
We can't decide that the quality of life is diminished to a point where now we can just ease it into the next. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's our conversation about death.
Yeah.
Be sure to tune in. We are on the air. Listen to us every Sunday night, 6 to 8 Eastern on Electromagnetic Radio.
And right here on our podcast.
And right here, which also airs on Electromagnetic Radio, the first something
Tuesday.
Of something.
The first Tuesday of the month at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Right. There we go.
We write, curate, and produce as VJ and Stevens, and you can subscribe to Don't Think Twice anywhere you listen to podcasts. Normally, we'd be working on a whole slate of live events in New York City and across North America, but pandemic. We're currently writing and living nomadically, pitching our scripted works for television. You can learn more about us at vjandstevens.com. That's V-I-J-A-Y and Stevens with a P-H. We're at VJ and Stevens on Instagram, and our assistant Susan is still learning how to tweet at Memos from Susan.